So, yeah, well, this is the next Moth Queen Effect video. This will probably go up tonight, if not tomorrow. As of when I'm recording this, it's like the night of the 14th. So, of course, obviously, this is getting to the video. So, on my I'll look in the past videos, I had mentioned retro games and what really classifies as a retro game. Surprisingly, this is something I never really talked about. Mainly because I guess I didn't really feel like I needed to, because, hey, I'll just review whatever. But since I want to review retro games, I guess I'll just give my thoughts on retro games and what I really classify as retro. As of now, I guess, we'll be going by GameStop's definition of what retro is. And this is basically anything that came out before the Switch, the PS4, and Xbox One. Not the old Xbox One, the new one, the younger one, the one that Microsoft kind of never really cared about, after the Kinect film. I don't know. Either way, jokes aside, so retro, it's a very interesting thing. Old games, but they're still cool. They're old, but they're actually still cool. Unless you're ET, then you kind of suck. But of course, there's definitely a lot of opinions on retro games and whether or not they're still worth, playing, whether or not people play for nostalgia's sake, or whether or not these games truly hold value. For me, they all hold value. There's a lot of games that I've played that are old that are generally really good, such as the old Pokemon games. I have them all. I like playing for them. I also like playing through old Grand Theft Auto games, old Mario games. I even like popping in Mass Effect on my Xbox 360 and playing that game. Yeah, I can play it on the PS4 and have all the DLC and not really have to worry about, installing stuff for like 2+ hours straight, because these consoles kind of suck when it comes to downloads. I can still enjoy this game though. And of course, I guess really my definition of retro is this is stuff that came out before 2013. I feel like if it came out on the PS4 near its launch, I don't really consider it a retro game. Like Call of Duty Ghosts and Advanced Warfare came out on the PS4, like either within months or on the same day as they did on PS3. And so I don't really consider these games retro, to be honest. And of course, this is kind of retro is kind of a tricky thing to really navigate because, technically, if it's on the Wii U, it could be a retro game. But Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild came out in 2017, and it's just like literally 8 years ago. Is it really a retro game? Or is it just retro because it's on a console that is a retro console? And even then, the Wii U, I wouldn't even say that's a retro console. Yeah, the Wii, that's a retro console because I think just turned 20 this year. Well, or will be turning 20 this year. But the Wii U, this console is going to be 14. I don't really think it's that old. And it's the same with the 3DS. It's just like, it's technically 15 years old, but at the same time, it's just like, they were releasing games on it back in 2019. I mean, Persona Q2, New Cinema Labyrinth came out in 2019, and I think the Wii had a Just Dance game in 2019 too. Yeah, sure, it's a Just Dance game, but it still came out on a Wii. And sure, with older consoles, it's easier to classify them as retro consoles. I mean, PS2 and PS3... my bad. The PS2 and Xbox, these are retro consoles. There's no doubt about that. You're not really going to find anyone who argues against that unless they live in the Upside Down, or whatever it was called. I never saw Stranger Things, so this reference is kind of lost on me in multiple ways. But of course, you might have some people that disagree with that, but then you'll have other people that would be like, okay, well, something on the Game Boy Color is definitely a retro game. Like, that console is older than the dinosaurs themselves. I apologize to any of my older viewers. I'm not making. I'm making bad jokes, but I'm also like a year younger than the Game Boy Color, and I feel shame in making that joke. But of course, going back to my points, I feel like retro games are kind of difficult to classify on some consoles because it's just because of how long some of these consoles can go. Sure, with like the Game Boy Advance, yeah, it's kind of easy because I'm like, okay, the console itself is old and hasn't had any games produced on it for like almost 2 decades at this point. But then you get to stuff like the PS3, which kind of had games go into 2017 with Persona 5. And this is, like, literally, again, okay, this is actually 9 years ago. Wow, that's shocking. But, yeah, again, it's just... And even back in 2022, like, the PS3 and Xbox 360 were considered retro consoles. Yeah, sure, the PS3 at that time would have been 16 years old. But at the same time, I don't really think it's fair to say it is a retro console because it just generally felt that as the times go on, it just feels like consoles just experienced longer lifespans. I don't know if I'd say the PS3 itself is entirely retro because its library kind of went a bit into the PS5. I don't even think I'd say the PS4 would be retro, in like 5 years because it's just like, well, we're gonna have games releasing on it probably this year. I mean, we all know Call of Duty is gonna release a game on the PlayStation this year. We all just kind of know that. But, I mean, sure, eventually, as time does go on, a lot of AAA games do move away from these consoles, which kind of starts to really leave these consoles behind. I mean, we've seen it already with the PS4 and Xbox One. Games like Stellar Blade and Avowed, big games on their respective consoles, really weren't released on previous hardware. Final Fantasy Rebirth itself wasn't released on the PS4. Neither was 16. And yeah, they probably could have had 16 on the PS4, but at that point, it's just, why? Why is it on this console? Should we just have it solely on this console because this console is a bit more powerful than this one? Not mentioned, it's just the question of like, well, most people are probably going to have the newer consoles, so there's not really much of a reason to release all this stuff on these consoles. But that's just some quick thoughts. And, yeah, as I would definitely say more, could games get, I guess, un-retro? I mean, take a look at Grand Theft Auto 5. Technically, Grand Theft Auto 5 is a retro title, but it's also been on the PS4 and PS5, and came on the it came out on PCs again. Like, I think last year, or the year before. I don't exactly remember, because I don't dabble too much in PC gaming, but they've re-released this game so many times that is Grand Theft Auto 5 really a retro title at this point? Yeah, I mean, you could be a jackass and say, well, yeah, of course it is. It came out on PS3. But so did Skyrim. And Skyrim's been released more times than the dogs. And so, really at that point, would these be retro games? And even ignoring those ones, I mean, you have games like Watch Dogs, Call of Duty Ghosts, Advanced Warfare, Wolfenstein, The New Order. Games that released on older hardware, but also on current hardware too. And I guess that kind of creates a tricky question of whether or not these games really should count as retro, or just simply something else. I mean, sure, with other games it's really easy to really think about. I mean, something like Call of Duty Modern Warfare, yeah, that's a retro game. It's only solely on PS3 and Xbox 360, and of course Wii, DS, and PC. But there's been no new generations of consoles that have had that. So it's an easy answer to really classify it as a retro game. But then you get stuff like The Last of Us, which, sure, didn't come out on the PS4 at launch, but it was really close to doing that. I think it was like, released in 2013? Well, no, September of 2013? Like, right as the PS4 was gonna drop. Then, sure, next year they remastered it, and then, 6 years later they remade it, which, actually, no, I think it's 7 years later that they remade it. I could be wrong, so I'm probably getting the years wrong. But yeah, it's definitely, I feel like, an interesting question of whether or not these games really classify as retro titles if they're on other consoles. I don't mean this with just remasters, but ports. I mean, could old Atari games be retro? Because, I mean, the Atari Flashbacks collection and 50th anniversary collection, they're on a lot of consoles, and that's really the question: is whether or not, what decides a retro game? I mean, yeah, sure, these companies kind of do. I mean, GameStop, yeah, they're probably gonna classify, Sleeping Dogs and PS3 as a retro game. I felt like a lot of people would, but there are some people like me who's maybe it's not really a retro game. It's an old game, but I don't really think it's retro in the sense that it is, so old that, it fits into the retro sense. But that's just honestly my opinion. That's really all I really have to say about retro games. Obviously, I'll still talk about these. They're pretty cool. I even have a new series to talk about them. I'll look in the past, but I will, look into the past and talk about retro games. I've already explained the rules for how I had that video, and of course, I'll just really explain them once again, because my definition of retro is really something that came out pre-2013, pre-PS4 and Xbox One, because these games do feel like they're retro. There's games that I don't really feel are retro. I don't really think Grand Theft Auto 5 is a retro game. Same thing with Call of Duty Ghosts, because, these games were on modern hardware, and still are. I mean, yeah, sure, Ghosts is a somewhat old game at this point, but the PS4 is still being sold in a lot of stores, so I just don't feel like I would classify some games as retro if they're on a console that is readily easily available. But that's all I really have to say for today's video. And of course, like usual, thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this. It was absolutely fun to make it. And I hope you all have a wonderful day and night. And I will of course see you all next time. See ya.